Safety is undoubtedly the most important subject you can talk about with your customers. And when you think about it, safety is about people more than anything else. It's about protecting the people that drive the products you sell, protecting their dreams, their lives, and their families. Safety is also the one feature that is near the top of just about everyone's consideration list. And with the recent ads promoting Ford 5-star crash test ratings, customers will be even more interested in learning about the subject. In order to convert these customers into buyers, you need to be able to help them understand and appreciate the safety systems found in Ford vehicles. In the next few minutes, you'll discover many of the ways safety is designed into Ford vehicles. Most importantly, you'll learn about safety in ways that will help you make it more understandable to your customers. In part one of this tape, we'll look at crash avoidance, features on the vehicle that help prevent a crash in the first place. Next, we'll look at two basic but very important safety features that customers need to use to protect them and their passengers in the event of an accident. Safety belts, and for those customers with children, child safety seats. In part two, we'll shift our focus to the vehicle itself, seeing how Ford engineers have designed safety into Ford vehicles from three different perspectives: front, side, and rear of the vehicle. Then you'll be in good position to understand why Ford vehicles have fared so well in the government's in-cab crash testing, and how this testing program gives you a tangible safety measure to talk about with customers. In part three, we'll look at advances in vehicle security, another area of high customer interest. Plus, we'll take a look at future safety technology. Throughout the tape, we'll intersperse a few real-world customer scenarios illustrating the top customer misconceptions about safety, and provide you with some suggestions on how to handle these misconceptions. Remember too, as you're watching, that safety is not just about sheet metal or new models or even technology. Safety is about people. What better way to illustrate that point than by letting you meet some of the people behind these safety innovations, people who care and who are smart enough and committed enough to make a difference. People like Dr. Priya Prasad, a worldwide leader in biomechanics, the human body, and safety issues, and a Ford research engineer for 25 years.
The sales people, should really talk to our customers and explain to them how the safety system in the car actually works. And very important part that they have to impress on them is wearing the seat belts. If the seat belt wearing rate goes up from 67% or 68%, what it is today, to 85%, 4,000 lives will be saved annually. So the message that our salespeople should give to our customers is wear the seat belts. As a company, Ford has the most number of 5-star cars and minivans, and we are very proud of it. It shows our commitment to safety. The ideal thing for a safety engineer would be that nobody gets hurt in a crash.
As Dr. Prasad said, the focus is on people first. Remember that when you talk safety with your customers. Focus on their lives, their families, and their needs, and fit the safety story to their unique situation, knowing that you have quite a story to tell. A story that begins with the subject of accident avoidance. And the fact is, while there are about 6 million automobile crashes every year, millions of vehicles don't get into an accident every year. There's a reason for that. Today's vehicles utilize technologies that make them easier to drive and easier to control. Two key accident avoidance features are anti-lock brakes and traction control, two important selling tools for Ford, Lincoln, and Mercury vehicles. The most well-known of all accident avoidance features is anti-lock braking. To understand the principle behind it requires a basic understanding of human psychology. Let's say I were to drop this book behind you. It makes a loud noise, doesn't it? Well, how would you react? Instinctively, you jump, be startled, tense up. In short, you'd overreact. Knowing that explains the human principle behind ABS. In a panic situation, sliding on ice, our natural inclination is to, well, panic and to overreact by slamming on the brakes. Now, that's natural, but it's not the right way to brake. Even in extreme situations, the result can be loss of control of the vehicle. Recognizing this, ABS is designed to compensate for the driver so they can overreact and stomp on the brakes. In fact, when this motion is detected, an impulse is sent to the ABS control module, and as long as the pedal is applied, the brakes essentially pump automatically, up to 30 times a second, allowing the driver to maintain greater control while stopping the vehicle. A human could never do this, even if they kept calm and remembered to do so. Of course, the technology of ABS makes pumping the brake obsolete. So tell your customers to go ahead and do what comes naturally. Stomp on the brakes and keep your foot there and let the ABS do the work. Now let's cut to a customer-based scenario for some ideas on how to help customers appreciate this technology.
What do I need ABS for? I can pump my own brakes.
Of course you can pump your own brakes. Skilled drivers have been doing it for years, but what about that emergency situation when there's no time? And your natural reaction is to slam on the brakes. Well then, ABS can pump your brakes as much as 30 times per second. And it'll make sure that you stop as quickly as possible without the wheels locking up and you losing control of the vehicle.
Well, I could stop just as fast with my old car.
Well, ABS isn't just about stopping in a shorter distance.
Then what's it good for?
What ABS really does is allow you to control your vehicle while you're braking, so that you can steer away from trouble while you're slowing down or stopping. It's all about giving you more control, not taking it away.
You may also want to point out that with ABS, you may occasionally experience a flutter or vibration in the brake pedal during hard braking. While new models have less perceptible vibration, let your customers know that this is designed to let the driver know that the anti-lock braking system is working, pumping the brakes up to 30 times a second to prevent wheel lockup and maintain control during the stop. Now, this characteristic is something you definitely want to point out on demonstration drives with prospects who are new to ABS. Traction control is a little more complex to explain. There are two primary system configurations that exist. First, there is traction assist, which only operates at speeds below 35 miles per hour, utilizing ABS technology to monitor and slow spinning wheels until they regain traction. All-speed traction control utilizes engine management to control wheel spin. When a wheel encounters reduced traction, engine output or torque to that wheel is reduced until traction is regained. Ford, Lincoln, and Mercury use a combination of these two systems to realize a best of both worlds scenario. This advanced traction control system is available on the 1999 Mustang, as well as the Crown Victoria Grand Marquis, Lincoln Town Car, Continental, Cougar, Mystique, and Windstar. The advantage of this system is that it gives the driver greater traction control under adverse conditions. When traction control sensors detect that a wheel is spinning at a higher rate than its counterpart, a combination of things happen. First, the ignition spark timing is changed and fuel intake is reduced, which reduces torque to the spinning wheel. If the car is traveling less than 35 miles per hour, the brakes are also applied to the wheel experiencing low friction. Power may also be transferred to the other wheel where there is better traction. With this system, the drive wheels are effectively searching for optimum traction several times per second, and adjustments are made accordingly. Test footage demonstrates how the system helps control the vehicle. On this low friction surface, without traction control, the drive wheels have difficulty moving the car forward. With traction control, the system makes continuous adjustments until the proper combination of braking and reduced engine output allows the car to move forward. This lane change on slippery surfaces also demonstrates a control aspect of the system. When a tire loses traction, it's more susceptible to lateral movement. With the system engaged, you can see how much more controllable the acceleration around the cones becomes. Now, before we move into our next segment, showing how Ford vehicles are engineered to protect their occupants in the event of an accident, let's examine two simple yet vitally important safety features that your customers have to use in order to benefit from them. Without question, the single most important safety device is the safety belt. National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, or NHTSA, estimates that in 1997 alone, 10,750 lives were saved with the use of safety belts. And that number would be even higher if more people used belts. Research indicates that only about 70% of drivers and passengers actually use the belts. Now, some people figure that because their vehicle has airbags, safety belts aren't necessary. Nothing could be further from the truth. Remember, airbags are a supplemental restraint system designed to work in conjunction with lap and shoulder belts. Encourage your customers not just to use safety belts, but to use them correctly.
The best way to keep an occupant safe is to wear their seatbelts. Airbags are wonderful, but they're supplemental to the seatbelt system and are only designed for frontal or near frontal crashes. The seatbelt system is good in basically all type crashes. Yeah, the two major issues are probably shoulder belt fit, to make sure it's not too low on the shoulder or too high on the neck. The other one is the lower lap, which wants to make sure that it's at the hip and not up high at the waist. An EMR retractor differs from a traditional retractor in that traditional retractor, once it's locked in a crash, will stay locked and the spool will not pay out any webbing. The EMR has this torsion bar feature that allows the spool under load to turn slightly, giving a controlled amount of payout and reducing injury. Pretensioners are designed to take out belt slack in the event of a severe crash. They can be put into the retractor assembly or into the buckle assembly as shown here. In this case, the buckle is attached to a cable which runs down and through this piston. In the center is a pyrotechnic device similar to an airbag. Once that is fired, the piston is driven down the tube, which thereby pulls the buckle down, reducing your belt slack. Most of our vehicles contain an ELR-ALR retractor. And this retractor has two modes. The ELR mode is primarily used for the adult occupant. Once it's put on, the retractor is allowed to freely pay in and out. For child seats, the ALR feature is used where the webbing is pulled all the way out. Once retracted, all the webbing will ratchet back and allow for a tight and secure child seat fit. The proper placement for a child seat is in the rear seat, buckled correctly. The ALR stands for automatic locking retractor, and that's used for installing child seats. And that is a mechanism in the retractor that when you pull the webbing all the way out, you hear a click, converts the gears over. Whatever webbing is paid back in stays in, basically ratchets back, and then you're allowed to tighten the child seat down to keep it steady and firm.
While proper use of safety belts is vitally important, so too is the proper use of child safety seats. Here are some of the facts to keep in mind with regard to customers with young children. Whenever possible, they should travel in the rear seat. If rear seat travel is impossible, for example, in a Ford Ranger or F-Series, then the front passenger airbag should be deactivated if the vehicle is equipped with one of these switches. When it comes to the actual child safety seat itself, there are three basic types: rear-facing infant seats, forward-facing child seats, and booster seats. Rear-facing infant seats are designed for children up to 12 months of age and up to 22 pounds in weight. Children weighing 22 to 40 pounds should ride in a forward-facing child seat placed in the rear of the vehicle. A booster seat is for an older child from 40 to 70 pounds. Again, all children under 12 should ride in the rear seat. A good resource on child seats to point your customers to is the Child Seat Owner's Manual, the Safety Advice Card, or the Vehicle's Owner's Guide, which explains how to safely anchor whichever kind of child safety seat your customers have. That ends part one of this tape. You can take a short break and continue on to part two, or come back at a later date. Remember, in part two, we'll take a look at occupant protection from a vehicle engineering standpoint, along with 5-star crash testing. Welcome back. Now we want to show you some of the advancements we've made to our vehicles that help protect people when an accident occurs. With that in mind, I want to show you something beautiful. Just look at that metal. Gorgeous. Look at the engine area, the frame. Now that's exceptional engineering. Crazy as it may sound, from a safety perspective, all this is true. This vehicle was involved in a very serious crash, and it behaved beautifully. Safety-wise, it did exactly what was expected of it, about all that could be hoped for. The term to describe all this is safety cell construction, a wide-ranging term that relates to how a vehicle's structure helps protect occupants in the event of a crash. The key to crashworthiness is to direct the impact forces of the crash away from the passenger compartment. In a frontal crash, that means designing components that collapse or fold in a manner that absorbs as much of the energy of the crash as possible before it reaches the passenger compartment. To help you understand the engineering behind this concept, let's allow automotive expert Rick Titus to demonstrate.
When you're talking frontal impact, you're talking an area that, frankly, Ford and Lincoln Mercury does exceedingly well. As sales professionals, I'm sure that most of you are aware of the number of 5-star safety-ready vehicles we've got. But how do you make that meaningful to the customer, particularly given the fact that most customers walk into the lot today, assume that if a car has 2 airbags, it's automatically equally safe. That is not true. We have some key areas of strength and engineering we need to be able to explain. I'm going to use the 1999 Windstar as kind of the backdrop for this. By the way, as you know, a 5-star safety-ready vehicle in and of itself. But I kind of want to walk you through the architecture of what occurs during an automobile accident, particularly when you have the advantage of using a Ford or Lincoln Mercury product. We've got a big vehicle coming in, it's smacking into the front of our vehicle. It starts to crush back. As it starts to crush in, the first thing that's going to happen, or second thing that's going to happen rather, is a second generation airbag is going to go off. Now, most of you already know that second generation means we have slower deployment speeds, on average about 160 miles an hour, far more friendly to the occupants of the vehicle. We're going to shatter the headlights, we're going to shatter the grille area, we're going to start to wrinkle the hood. It is now the second and third line defense almost go to work simultaneously. See, the engine and transmission in this vehicle have been designed to be guided underneath of it. We don't want it to come into the passenger cell area, start to crush the leg space. So already they're starting to move down their track system. But something you've got is what's referred to structurally as a front shotgun. Now that is hidden underneath the fender. And in a way, I think that's kind of unfortunate because the customer doesn't get to see it. This front structure is conical in shape. It's designed to start to control the rate of decel. Think of it as a giant shock absorber. As you're heading on in, it's starting to bend on back and absorb a lot of energy. Boom, the fuel inertia cutoff switch has gone to work. Why? Because today's engines are fuel injected. They have a lot of fuel line pressure. We don't want that line torn and be feeding raw fuel to the air now. So we shut the fuel supply off instantly. About this time, well, son of a gun, now the cockpit starts to go to work for you. Your collapsible steering column starts to go to work. We're going to take this big impact and we're going to continue to send it on around you. We're going to bend the roof. We're going to bend the floor. We'll bend the rocker sills. The entire body was involved in the bend process in self-destructing, so it saves the occupants inside. Good detail work, but it has to be engineered in. It takes a one-piece body side. It takes that front shotgun structure. It takes all these systems working together because everything it just took me 2 minutes to describe to you occurs in 200 mils of a second.
One of the tools Ford engineers use to develop many of the concepts Rick just told you about is the computer. The ability of computers to simulate how vehicles react in a crash has greatly improved. As a result, computers can now be used to accurately predict crash performance. Ford engineers use computers to simulate how vehicles react in a crash. As a result, computers can now be used to accurately predict crash performance. Remember, the process of making components and metal collapse the way you want it to in a crash is referred to as creating crumple zones. It's an important safety point to tell your customers, in addition to the more publicized features like ABS, traction control, and airbags. Crashworthiness is really built into the structure of the vehicle at the very beginning. This is not something that can be added late into the design process. Instead, it works early on and together with new technologies like a one-piece body side stamping for greater structural stability. In addition, there are reinforced roof pillars. The windshield is designed for safety. It's laminated, which means less chance of shattering, and it's designed to better withstand impact without causing injury. And specially designed door hinges and latches that help prevent doors from opening in a collision, yet can be opened after some collisions. Now let's cut to another customer-based scenario for some more safety presentation insights.
This car has too much plastic. I bet it would fold like an accordion in a fender bender.
Well, more plastic doesn't necessarily mean less safe. And cars today have specific areas that are designed to fold.
As if they would design a car to fold like that. Cars today are just made cheaper.
I don't think so. Cars today are made smarter. Think about it. How would you protect an egg from breaking? Would you put it in a metal safe or would you wrap it in foam?
I'd wrap it in foam and put it in a metal safe.
Yeah, but you'd wrap it in foam because that foam can absorb the force of the impact, right? Well, see, today's cars are designed the same way. They absorb the impact forces so that it minimizes the effect on the people inside, or in this case, the egg. What's more important, being able to walk away from an accident or have less damage to your car?
Now let's examine the one feature everyone thinks of when they think of safety, the airbag. First, it's important to understand that sensors are carefully designed and placed on the vehicle to effectively measure deceleration and determine if and when the airbag deploys. Various factors enter into the equation, including how direct the impact is or whether the vehicle is sliding off center. Within the single-point sensor, an accelerometer measures the deceleration rate and a microprocessor makes the actual decision to deploy. Frontal airbags deploy in about 1/20th of a second, about half the time it takes to blink your eye. And as you heard earlier, all Ford, Lincoln, and Mercury vehicles now feature second-generation airbags that deploy with less force than pre-1998 conventional bags. This reduces the chances of injury from the bag itself, especially for small-statured adults and children. Now let's cut once again to several customer scenarios, this time regarding some common misconceptions about airbags.
I'm not at all convinced airbags are a good thing. If I can't turn my airbags off, I don't think I'll buy the car.
Why don't you think they're a good thing?
Well, I've done some research, and I've read that you can actually get injured when they inflate.
Well, first of all, airbags have saved thousands of lives since they were introduced, which I think you'll agree far outweighs the few injuries that have occurred due to airbags. What's more, if you wear your seatbelt and properly position a child safety seat, you shouldn't even worry about airbags. What's more, since 1998, all Ford and Lincoln Mercury airbags deploy with less force, so they're even safer.
All right, but my wife is very short. I've read that airbags can be very dangerous for shorter people.
Airbags should not be dangerous for shorter statured adults, provided they're wearing their safety belt properly and they sit as far back as possible. Make sure that your wife is at least 10 inches from the steering wheel or instrument panel. Now, if she needs to be closer, well, then you may want to explore other options. Now, you can have the airbags disconnected, but only with the permission of the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. That permission will generally be granted for people who can't get farther than 10 inches from the steering wheel or instrument panel, or people who have children that must ride in the front seat due to their handicap. Now, I can provide you with that phone number if you'd like.
Obviously, today's customers are very concerned with airbag safety. The key is to listen to their concerns, help them understand the benefits of airbags, and not force the issue. If they insist that they want to have their airbags disconnected, provide them with the information they will need to explore this option. Help them with their research and use it as an opportunity to build the relationship. Now let's look at one more airbag scenario.
You know, I've heard that pregnant women shouldn't drive in a car with airbags.
Actually, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration recommends that pregnant women should use their safety belts. And the use of an airbag is okay. The key really is the placement of the safety belt. You need to place the shoulder portion of the safety belt over the collarbone, with the lap portion of the safety belt placed under the abdomen as low as possible on the hips and across the upper thighs. The belt should never be placed above the abdomen. Also, you should sit as far away from the steering wheel as possible.
I'd like to get your reaction to something. Take a look at this footage of a dual airbag vehicle in action. Pretty impressive, right? That's how most people would look at it. But as safety technology expands, more and more of us, sooner rather than later, are going to start viewing what we just saw as an example of a vehicle that is airbag deficient. Let me explain my thinking on this. In recent years, perhaps the most dramatic improvement in automotive safety has been for side impact collisions. Side impacts are often more serious because there's less crush space between the vehicle passenger and the impact area. That's why at Ford, airbag technology has been applied to side impact collisions. Now, currently, side impact airbags are standard on Lincoln Town Car and Continental and are optional on Ford Windstar, Explorer, Mercury Mountaineer, and Cougar. Ford Motor Company is committed to side airbag technology for front seats in all its cars within the next 2 years. Now that we've shown you a number of safety features, let me ask you what may seem like a simple question. Which of these features would normally be associated with safety? Anti-lock brakes, airbags, seat belts, or door trim? Well, the answer is easy, right? Door trim. Well, Ford engineers didn't look at it that way. In fact, by looking at things differently, Ford safety engineers have turned the trim on a side door into an innovative safety feature. It's called the deploying trim system, and it uses energy-absorbing foam bolsters in the front doors to push occupants away from the door panels in a collision. The foam bolsters are stowed between the door outer panel in the trim panel. In the event of a side impact, the bumper on the oncoming car pushes these pelvic foams toward the occupant, deploying the side trim. The foams push the driver or passenger away from the oncoming vehicle and help cushion the occupant. Pushing a driver or passenger a few inches inward may not seem like a lot, but when it comes to a side impact collision, a few inches can mean everything. Right now, this unique safety feature is found on Ford Contour and Mercury Mystique front doors, Escort rear doors, and the Windstar sliding side doors. Now, onto the rear of the vehicle, an area that may not get as much attention as the front or even the side, but it's an important consideration in overall safety. Now, there are two important considerations in rear impact safety design: avoiding whiplash injuries and protecting the vehicle fuel tank. The primary protection against whiplash injuries is the head restraint. It helps protect the head and neck in the event of a sudden acceleration caused by a rear collision. Many people overlook the safety value of head restraints. More importantly, many people don't know how to adjust them properly. A properly positioned head restraint will result in the center of the restraint being positioned behind the center of the head. Be sure your customers understand the value of head restraints and that they know how to adjust them properly. One of the most important considerations in rear impact safety is the fuel tank. Because of the flammable nature of gasoline, it's very important to protect the tank against leakage or against sparks that could ignite the gasoline. All fuel tanks must meet federal safety standards. The tanks themselves undergo extensive testing. A special liquid with similar density to gasoline is put in the tank, and then the tank is tested in various situations to determine if there is leakage. Earlier, I mentioned the 5-star government front crash ratings. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration of the federal government's Department of Transportation conducts a new car assessment program, or NCAP, that tests the crash worthiness of new cars and trucks.
The new car assessment program testing is conducted at 35 miles an hour into a full barrier. We examine the data that comes from the dummies that are in the vehicle, both the driver dummy and the right seat passenger dummy. Both of these dummies are belted, again, using all safety features of the vehicle. From those measurements, we determine the potential injury associated with the measurements. From that, we establish our star rating system. Let's examine the 5-star rating system a little bit, because many consumers are confused about what 5 stars really means. 5 stars being the best, and that is based on a potential for injury to the head and the chest. A 5-star rated vehicle indicates that there is only a 1 in 10 possibility of a severe injury in a very severe crash like the New Car Assessment Program test. On the other end, the 1-star rating is about a 50% chance of severe injury. If a manufacturer is able to obtain a 5-star rating, it indicates that that vehicle in the real world is going to perform very well in frontal crashes in very severe situations.
The ratings are meaningful in comparing vehicles in their own weight class within 500 pounds of each other. Meaningful enough that Ford and other manufacturers are using these ratings in advertising. So you can expect to see customers coming into your dealership armed with 5-star messages and questions about what it all means. As you can see, Ford, Lincoln, and Mercury cars do quite well in the NHTSA tests. There are only a handful of cars that rate 5 stars, and both Taurus Sable and Crown Victoria Grand Marquis are included. Contour and Mystique also rate 5 stars on the driver's side. Not every vehicle is rated every year, and the latest ratings are shown here. Ford, Mercury, and Lincoln trucks, minivans, and SUVs also do quite well. And for the 5th year in a row, the 1999 Windstar received a 5-star rating. So what do these ratings mean for you? Actually, they're very important for a couple of reasons. They are one indication to your customer of the crash worthiness of the vehicle, how well it will stand up in a crash. But perhaps most important is that they're an objective rating from a third-party source. This is information from the federal government, not Ford. That only adds to its credibility to your customer. These ratings can also be a competitive advantage for you. NHTSA says comparisons should be made only in vehicles within 500 pounds of each other. On that basis, the 1999 Sable has a clear edge over Buick LeSabre, double 5 stars versus double 4 stars. And Grand Marquis has an advantage over Oldsmobile Aurora. Taurus's double 5-star rating exceeds Toyota Camry, which receives 4 stars on driver and 5 stars on passenger. And Windstar's double 5 stars outperforms Dodge Grand Caravan, which to date has a rating of double 3 stars. What you just saw was dramatic proof of how the safety story goes beyond the presence of front airbags. Because while airbags are a great safety feature, there's a lot more to the story. Ideas like energy absorption, crumple zones, and collapsible steering wheels. The type of engineering that allowed the Windstar you just saw to behave so beautifully in a simulated crash situation. That ends part 2 of this tape. Once again, you can take a short break or come back at a later date. In part 3, we'll take a look at security and future safety technology. Although safety and security seemingly go hand in hand, many customers overlook the importance of security. But at Ford, we think that the area of vehicle and personal security is also important to today's car and truck buyers, and it expands the concept of personal safety in a very real-world way. Your customers have made a large investment in transportation, and they want to protect it every bit as much as they want to protect themselves. SecureLock provides security and peace of mind for owners. The heart of the system is the specially coded ignition key that must be used to start the vehicle. Without the proper code, the engine won't start. A simple 2-step procedure is used to code spare keys, which are available from dealerships. Simply take a coded key that will start the engine and turn the ignition from on to off. Within 15 seconds, insert a new key into the ignition and turn it to on or start. The vehicle does not have to be started. When Secure Lock was introduced in 1996, thefts of Mustang GT models decreased by 77% over models without the system in a comparable period. The perimeter anti-theft system guards against break-ins. It's called perimeter because it guards not only the vehicle's doors, but also the hood and luggage compartment or liftgate. If unauthorized entry occurs, the system will flash the headlamps or parking lamps, depending on the model, tail lamps, and also sound the horn. Additional security features that can be important to your customers include a remote keyless system that allows the driver to unlock the doors from a remote location, the illuminated entry system that lights up the interior before you open the doors, the automatic on, delayed off headlamp system, power door locks for convenient entry and exit, and a cellular phone. Of course, the best way to determine your prospect's security needs is to ask him and her in your qualifying process. The right security options could be enough to close the sale. As with all of the automotive industry, safety technology continues to advance. When you think that only a few years ago, side airbags were actually a concept, not just a dream, you can see how far we've come. In this section, we'll take a glimpse into future safety technology. One of the most exciting areas is the advanced airbag system. Current airbags are virtually a go or no-go situation. The microprocessor determines when conditions are right, and the airbag inflates. However, future airbag systems will be more intelligent.
Second generation airbags work just like the first generation, or the airbags that we've always used, except they have a little less power in them. We removed some of the propellant so that the airbag actually inflates a little slower with a little less energy. And this provides improved performance for occupants who are out of position, who may be susceptible to out-of-position injuries from the inflating airbag. There's a number of features that we have in our smart, or we call them our advanced restraint systems. One of those is a weight sensor, which can detect if there's an occupant in the seat and if that occupant is above a certain weight threshold. If they are a child, a small child, or an infant in a child seat, or an empty seat, in those cases we will turn off the airbag so the airbag has no potential for causing injury. If you're above a threshold, say you're an adult or a fifth percentile female or larger, then we'll go ahead and leave the airbag on or active so you'll have that protection. The advanced restraint systems that we're developing, we've got a couple of different technologies. Now, the weight sensors that we're using don't try to distinguish between groceries or cargo and occupants. All they're looking for is a set weight threshold. So above a weight threshold, you'll get an airbag. Below the threshold, you won't. But we have other technologies that are a little more advanced that use spatial sensing. So it will detect the location of the occupant's head and chest and automatically track it dynamically during a crash to determine if they're in an appropriate position for an airbag deployment. We're also looking at seat position sensors that will tell us the location of the seat. It indirectly gives us the occupant's position. One of the problems that we've had with airbags recently, in some rare events, we've had small adults on the driver's side are exposed to increased risk of injuries because they have to sit close to the airbag. So in that case, we can incorporate seat position sensors that will tell us when the seat's close to the steering wheel. We will prevent the full deployment from occurring, and we'll just deploy the first stage. I think as we look further into the future, 10 years and more down the road, we're going to see continued improvements in safety systems. We're going to see systems that will not only protect you when you're in a crash, but are going to help prevent the crashes to begin with. We know that we're going to continue to see accidents. More and more people are driving further every year, and there's more congestion. So accidents are kind of a fact of life. But the advanced systems will not only protect a person in a crash, but also prevent the crashes from happening to begin with.
Safety technology will continue to improve, and tomorrow's cars and trucks will undoubtedly be safer than those on the road today. But one thing will not change. You will need to understand the latest safety technology and be able to explain it. We hope this video has been helpful to you, and we encourage you to talk safety with your customers. No other issue and no other features will mean as much to them. Talking about the safety commitment at Ford Motor Company in real terms can allow you to develop a close bond with them, the kind of bond that leads to a long-term relationship.